As we come on the air today, the nation prepares for a transfer of power and braces for those who oppose it. And that is the backdrop for the second impeachment of President Donald Trump this week, accusing him of inciting insurrection. That impeachment vote in the House comes 1 week after the mob attack on the Capitol on the president's behalf. South Florida members of Congress voted along party lines on that impeachment vote. Democrats Frederico Wilson, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Ted Deutsch, Alcee Hastings, and Lois Frankel all voting to impeach, and voting against Republicans Mario Diaz-Balart, Maria Elvira Salazar, and Carlos Gimenez.
Congressman Gimenez joins us now via Skype from his home in Miami. Congressman, good morning. Glad you could join us.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys doing?
We're well. Congressman, let's begin here. You and your family were forced to flee from Cuba because Fidel Castro took away your property, basic human rights, including the right to vote in free and fair elections. On January 6th, you voted to take away the votes of millions of voters in Arizona and Pennsylvania, votes that were freely and fairly cast. Given your personal history, how do you justify that?
Sure, I can justify very well by saying that the votes that I took were for Arizona and Pennsylvania, and it was to uphold the Constitution. The Constitution says that only state legislatures can set the rules, the manner and means in which electors are chosen from those states. And in those particular cases, those two states, we had people that were not the state legislatures that had actually violated some of the rules set by the state legislatures. Now, it wasn't going to overturn the election because those two states did not have sufficient electoral votes to overturn the states, unlike what happened in 2005 when the Democrats challenged Ohio. And we had 31 Democrats voting not to accept the slate from Ohio. And that, if that had been successful, by the way, 80 of them also abstained from voting. Had that been successful,
can we just unpack a little bit of that, Congressman? We have a short amount of time. It's so difficult on Skype, and I apologize having a back and forth conversation. But we're trying our best. So you had in the past sort of elaborated on what you just said about a violation of Constitution, and you actually quoted the article. Not today, but then Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 is what you were talking about. I want to put that up so people can see exactly what that says. So Clause 2 says, each state shall appoint in a manner as the legislature may direct a number of electors equal to the whole number of senators and representatives, that's simple civics, to which the state may be entitled to the Congress, but no senator or rep or person holding an office of trust or profit under the United States shall be appointed an elector. So we've been doing that for 200 some odd years. And as you sat as the juror, what evidence did you see that 60-something court judges didn't see that's a violation of that clause? Well,
the courts, look, are very adverse at overturning elections, and rightly so. And so the rules were set, and most of the courts said that people either didn't have standing or they cited laches that maybe somebody had not brought this up before the election. And so the courts are right in what they did. Now what we want to do is make sure that the Supreme Court and those legislators make absolutely sure that only they are the ones that are making the laws that govern our elections. Look, Florida had great elections, and really what I love to do is use Florida as the model for the entire nation. Nobody said there was any problems here.
Well, Florida, Congressman, I beg your pardon. Let me break in to say, Florida changed its election laws before the primary and general elections this year, said that votes could be counted 22 days before the election. Vote by mail ballots could be counted. So did Florida break whatever, you think, was that unconstitutional?
No, I'm saying state legislatures can do whatever laws. It's the state legislatures that make those rules. Look, in Washington, everybody gets an absentee ballot. That's what the state legislature has said. That's totally constitutional. But when an individual says, hey, I'm going to change this rule here, and when a court says, hey, I'm going to change that rule there, that I believe is unconstitutional.
Although Governor DeSantis actually did extend unilaterally registration hours for a day after a little bit of a system meltdown.
Because there was a shutdown in the registration software, so people couldn't register, and that was right. Okay, but to unilaterally say, hey, you don't have to verify signatures. Hey, we're going to extend registration into the election. as some people did in Arizona and Pennsylvania, look, that's what causes problems. That's why we need to have a set of rules that everybody understands going into election, and that no individual can change, so that all parties say, hey, that's a fair and honest election. Now, I'm not saying that it wasn't fair and it wasn't honest, but when you start changing the rules, when the game's already started or just before the game starts, you're going to have problems. We need to rectify
the rules
together as a nation.
Yeah, okay? Congressman, the rules according to the Constitution, and here's my well-thumbed copy right here, in Section 2, it also says, and I'm going to put this up on the screen so people at home can see this. The President of the Senate shall, in the presence of the Senate, House of Representatives, open all the certificates, and the votes shall then be counted. The person having the greatest number of votes shall be the president. So the idea of Senator Cruz, Senator Hawley, and which you were supporting, of appointing an audit committee, your function, the function of Congress with the electors, is ministerial. It's administrative.
No, it's not. Absolutely not. That's absolutely false. And because I'll tell you why it's absolutely false. If it were ministerial, then why do we have these processes in place? And that's the one thing that I was listening to the debate, and people were saying was ministerial. Well, then why do you have these processes that puts us in the middle of this? Look, let me give you a quote, okay, from 2005. It says, "Today we are witnessing democracy at work. This isn't, as some of our Republican colleagues have referred to, sadly, as frivolous. This debate is fundamental to our democracy. The representatives of the American people in this House are standing up for three fundamental American beliefs. The right to vote is sacred, that a representative has a duty to represent his or her constituents, and that the rule of law is the hallmark of our nation." That's what Nancy Pelosi said back in 2005 when the Democrats were standing up in opposition to the slate from Ohio. And I agree with her, all right? And so, yes, we need to stand up for the Constitution. We need to stop bickering, follow the rules, and everybody will say, that's right, that's the way to do it, and then we can move on as a country.
Yeah, Congressman, the fact is, however, you took this vote against accepting the electors hours after the U.S. Capitol was assaulted by a mob, and other members of Congress, respected members, Senator Marco Rubio said, yeah, I know, this was a moment when people were going to make a symbolic vote, which they knew they were going to lose. This isn't the time to be sending a message to doing symbolic votes. Let's accept the electors. Was Senator Rubio wrong?
Yeah, he was, because you have to protect the Constitution. And one thing is that mob, I can completely condemn that mob. Every one of them should be identified. Every one of them should be brought to justice, go to jail for the term that they deserve. I have absolutely zero tolerance for that kind of behavior on any front. Any kind of violence, on any kind of demonstration should be condemned on all fronts. But because of that, I still have to protect the Constitution. And that's why I voted the way I did, because I felt in my mind we have to protect the Constitution. We need, for the next election, to make sure that these rules aren't changed unilaterally by an individual, by a supervisor of election, by a judge, by a Secretary of State. The state legislatures have to make those rules, and that's the reason I voted the way I voted.
I just want to ask you, Congressman, one more question, not to beat a dead horse, but
I think you're
and every other, you would presume, federal judge in the United States wants to hold up the U.S. Constitution as well. So I just want to read you one little piece of opinion from the U.S. District Court, Middle District of Pennsylvania. This was one of the 60 some odd cases addressing this on this was November 21st. Judge Matthew Brann, in his opinion on this very thing, I'm just going to pull out something, he says, one might expect when seeking a startling outcome, the plaintiff would come armed with compelling legal arguments and factual proof, such as the court would have no option to grant this relief. This has not happened. He called it strained legal arguments without merit and speculative accusations, unsupported by evidence. And so this judge, who wants to uphold the Constitution just like you do, what do you make of that disparity in what he sees and what you see?
Oh, because I think they were talking about massive voter fraud and all those things that some folks were alleging. That I agree with that judge. What I'm saying is no. The question is that the rules should not have been changed. I'm not questioning the outcome of the election. And by the way, like I said before, even if those two states had been overturned, you know, soon to be President Biden will be President Biden because there were not sufficient electoral college votes to overturn the election, unlike 2005. And so, you know, we have to be consistent here in our application of our criticism and all that. I didn't hear a peep from anybody when the Democrats were objecting to Ohio back in 2005, which would have overturned the election. And as you can see, Nancy Pelosi was more than happy to bring that that debate and actually spoke in favor.
Well,
again, 31 of her colleagues voted in favor of that, of overturning.
The issue here, Congressman, excuse me, the issue here is not what happened in 2005. We're aware there was this history. The question really is what happened on the morning of January 6th of this year, when on the ellipse, President Trump said to this large crowd that they should march on the Capitol, that they should fight like hell, they should be strong and take back their government because the election was stolen and they had to show the members of Congress and change the election. Was that an insurrection, an incitement to insurrection?
He also said to go to the Capitol and do so in a peaceful manner and respectfully. He said that too. You failed to say that, okay? And so, the speech, could he have said other things? Absolutely. Was I happy with the outcome that day? Absolutely not. It was an embarrassment to this nation, and it should have never happened. But I will tell you this, all right, that I know that at 9 o'clock in the morning, myself and my chief of staff, we witnessed an individual in a helmet ready for rumble, and he said that, hey, we're gonna charge. And my chief of staff thought he heard the FBI at 2 o'clock, and then he later said, he may have said the Capitol. We reported that to the Capitol Police at 9 o'clock in the morning. Hey, we have people here in my hotel room, all right, that are going to do some bad things, and we got a call back from the FBI trying to identify this individual. So I think you'll find that there were people there that were going to do what they were going to do. All right. Now, did I approve of the president's message? No, I did not. Okay. I was disturbed by it. But there's people do say a lot of things that they regret. And again, one thing is what happened, and the other thing is defending the Constitution. And that's what I did, and that's what I will continue to do.
I'm just curious to hear, and I want you to know, can I just say that we're very grateful that you are with us today, because I think South Florida constituents are really interested in hearing your perspectives about this. So we're very grateful that you're here with us today answering that. Okay. I'm curious to hear how you describe these people. Would you describe that there were protesters there who certainly didn't breach the Capitol? Absolutely, a lot of them. So would you describe that as an insurrection, as domestic terrorism? One of the actual breachers called it a revolution. What would you call it?
Well, I would call it an act of insurrection, an act of terrorism, an act of lawlessness, an act of rioting, and then every one of them should be identified. Every one of them should be brought to justice. Everyone needs to go to jail. And that's what we need to do. And you know me, I'm very pro law enforcement. When we had the instances here of demonstrations in Miami and Miami-Dade, we took a very tough stance, and because of that, our city didn't burn because we wouldn't allow it. I certainly am not going to be justifying the actions of these thugs and these terrorists that assaulted our Capitol. Again, I want them brought to justice, and I want to see them go to jail.
All right, Congressman, hold on. We're very glad you're with us. We're going to speak a little bit more. Back with Carlos Gimenez in just a minute.
We are back with South Florida Congressman Carlos Gimenez talking about insurrection at the Capitol, talking about what's to come this week. Congressman, I want to go sort of a little deeper into the subtext of everything happening. And I'm going to label it people who think fake news. And I'm going to add to that true fake news, because disinformation campaigns, not just over the last couple of weeks, but over the last 4 years, have really fueled a lot of the violence that we're seeing and may remain seeing. Some of that, a large portion of it right here in our own community on Spanish language radio and in print and in sort of not mainstream media. I know you know all about that. That is part of your community, and I want to hear from you. What do you think Congress can do about it, should do about it, and your take on all that?
I think that this all lies with the media on both sides, to be honest with you, because there's disinformation coming from both sides here. I mean, for 3 years, we were fed this whole thing about Russian collusion. Turned out to be a total baloney, all right? And we kept hearing it and hearing it. And so you have disinformation on the right, disinformation on the left. And people are gravitating to what it is that they want to hear.
Well, right? Congressman, I'm talking more about mainstream media has become the enemy to Trump supporters. We don't subscribe to that. Local news, do you consider us to be fake news here at Local 10?
No, I think that there are some outlets that really are not balanced. All right. And
but aside from balance, flat out lies. The Miami Herald supplement called El Libre was an anti-Semitic, racially dog whistle commentary that actually resulted in the top people at the Herald leaving, and that was just kind of the tip of the iceberg of what we've been seeing, and that really fuels a lot of people who believe that.
But don't you know that you also, that for 4 years you were fueling this whole thing about a Russian collusion? It turned out to be a total fake.
That's factually incorrect.
What people are trying to find is, and are seeing is that there's somehow news organizations are aligning themselves right or left, and only give you half the story or half the story.
So
and
what is Congress's role in that?
We need to get back to journalism, where you are skeptical of everything, just like you're skeptical of me today, okay?
We absolutely do that 100% of the time. But the question is, nationwide, this is an issue. It sounds like we agree that this is an issue. What is Congress's role in that, so that people get good information?
Well, listen, I'm very hesitant to put laws and rules that say, hey, we're going to be the truth police. That's the last thing I want to do. I want people to have access to information, unfettered, uncensored. What Twitter is doing, what Facebook is doing, is what they determine is correct or a lie, or we're going to fact check this and fact check that. No, that's not the American way, and we're losing our freedom of speech.
Was this election stolen, Congressman? Was this election stolen in your vision?
No, it wasn't stolen. I didn't say it was stolen. Okay, I didn't say that at all.
Good to hear.
Okay.
Thank you.
I didn't say that at all. I said that we need to make sure that elections in the future follow the Constitution, because then we can put all these arguments, to the side, and we say, and we all agree, yep, fair election. That's the way it is. That's what I'm used to here in this country, And so, but as Americans, the last thing I want to do is to try to be again, like I said, the truth police. That is extremely dangerous, because what is the truth? You need to. I think we need to give us Americans a little bit more credit that we have a little bit more up here than people think we do. That we can make up our own minds what we think is right and what we think is wrong, and have the right to listen to this person and that person and make up our own minds. Okay, that's the way it should be, and that's what I'm going to be fighting for.
Congressman, in your many years in public service, you were well known as a moderate. When you ran for office, for a partisan office, you promised in your campaign and said on election night you would be a congressman who would reach across the aisle, who would be moderate. Your first two consequential votes were with the far right and affirmed Donald Trump and false lies that he had the election stolen.
Excuse me. First of all, I completely disagree with your assessment. And those are two votes, all right? And with the far right. It wasn't with the far right. It was most of them were.
Let's say with Donald Trump.
First of all, and let's talk about impeachment, okay? You want to talk about impeachment? Let's do it, okay? Let's talk about impeachment, all right? So where in the world Nancy Pelosi said that she had to have impeachment because we had to get rid of this president and we had to remove him from office right away. That was a flat out lie. The president's still there, and the president's going to be there until the 20th. And so what did? We had a 3-hour impeachment. Heck, a burglar gets more process than the president. The president shouldn't get any more than a burglar, but he should get as much, And so that's why I voted against impeachment, because the process, it was a flat out lie that she said we had to get him out and we had to do it this way. The rules were pushed through like that, and then 3-hour debate, and then we impeached the president. I don't think that's right. That's not America. That's not the America I came here.
All right.
So
and
we needed to have committee. We need to have the committee investigation. We need to have witnesses, and then we needed also the defense of the president. Okay?
Isn't that what happens in the Senate, though?
We could have had more of the Republicans say, yeah, okay, maybe he did something wrong, but we don't know because it took place in 3 hours. That was a travesty.
Congressman Carlos Gimenez, we are very glad you joined us this morning. You've made your points very clear. We're glad to hear them. Thanks very much.
Look forward to having you back, as always.
Thank you.